bar has been raised, not this bar, but you know which bar I'm talking about. So we heard Mitendra, very beautiful talk. Virendra, of course, about creativity and IPS officer, marketing, author, so many things, and of course, ma'am, at the end of the day. There's one topic which we haven't touched upon, I think, which is equally important and because of which the world operates. Paisa. Right? All of you have a bank account now? Yes. I had one in State Bank of India, I think it was, near that workshop, I don't know if it's still there. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about is the story of banks. Because over the past 18, 19 years, I've had the opportunity to see banks from within. And it's a very interesting story. So let's begin. We know this movie. So these days I tell my story as a perfect 3 idiot story, and you stole a little bit of that thunder when you call yourself an idiot. So I join you in that journey, Virendra, by calling myself an idiot, because we met with this character. जिसने इंजीनियरिंग किया, उसमें मैं थोड़ा सा M.Tech भी किया, MBA करके बैंक में नौकरी कर रहा है, right? And look at what Amir Khan told him. क्या गधा है? Well, I mean, the fact is, after passing out of MITS, one cannot be a gadha. Can we? No. Of course not. So here we go. Let's begin the journey. So, I know it's an afternoon session, so I have sprinkled in some videos in there, just to, keep you awake. You can raise the voice when the videos come in. Right, so the story of banks goes a long way back, something around 2000 BC. In fact, this building is not 2000 BC, but this is still very old. So the banking in some shape or form started around 2000 BC, when traders used to get money from money lenders, so on and so forth. But the real modern banking started with this bank in Italy in 1472. And then most of the modern brands or banking behemoths, as they are called, started emerging, including 2 of the banks where I have worked. So I'm currently working with RBS, I work with Barclays, and so on and so forth. So most of these banks, especially the first row, they are from the 15th and 16th century, 17th century. So very, very old banks. SBI is 1890, right? So fairly new by that standard. It is a very, very big industry, right? And I'm going to call banking as an industry because that is what it is. This figure, and if anybody can tell what this figure is, hats off to you. But if not, this is the number of securities traded around the world per year. This number is $80 trillion. Okay, so it's a huge industry. At the same time, it is a very, very complicated industry because it is one of the most regulated industries in the world. You understand regulation, right? We struggle to cope up with the traffic signals, the red signal that asks us to stop. That's a regulation. It tells us how to take a left turn and a right turn. Well, imagine how many signals the banks have to adhere to, or the rules and laws that banks have to adhere to. And that is, so there are roughly 103 million words in the federal regulations, as in mostly the US and Western world regulation, which will take roughly 2 years for a human being to read those regulations. If you read them 24 hours a day, 300 words per minute. This is a drawing which my 7-year-old daughter, drew in her KG. Really? Actually not. It's the architecture diagram of one part of a bank, and that is the home loans department. It doesn't have to be of any particular bank. It can be any bank. It can be State Bank of India, Barclays, Bank of Maharashtra, choose whichever bank you want. But that is, my friends, the state of technology, architecture in some of the oldest banks, some of the, let's call it the modern banks also. Because there are lots of crisscross wires going all around. So that means there is a huge opportunity. Anybody who wants to make a career in banking, there is over $500 billion being spent annually in the information technology space as far as banks are concerned. So that's a huge number, a lot of opportunity, a lot of jobs. And India is still one of the leading countries where lots of banks have their IT presence. And again, there is one more figure. This is $321 billion. You know what this number is? What is the traffic fine if you break a red signal these days? Maybe 500 rupees? 1000 perhaps? I don't know. This is the amount of fines that the banks have paid all over the world since 2008. Okay? So you can imagine the scale at which this industry is operating, the scale at which the regulations are impacting this industry. The banks where I work, they continue to pay fines, and so many others, right? And it is because of some of the wrongdoings, the misdeeds, and I think maybe bankers also need to perhaps read the Bhagavad Gita to, operate in a much more efficient manner, but we'll talk about that some other day. Having said that, banking sector employs roughly about 28% of the workforce, which means that it is one of the most popular sectors where people work. But if you look at the trust factor that people have in the banking sector, it is one of the lowest amongst all the sectors, 52% only. And if we drill down a little bit more, I know it's not readable from the back, but most of the Western world, I mean those green bars down there, they don't trust the banking sector, especially after 2008. So the situation is kind of, a little shaky. And also the other challenge is that banks are continuously the target of a shady set of characters known as hackers. So again, I'm just going to give you a flavor of what are some of the challenges which banks face. It is the fourth, most hacked into industry around the world. Same story continues. I mean, banks you can see are the most hacked into cyber attacks, so on and so forth. And there's almost $1 billion of social engineering related fraud that has happened. So again, a message also that we have to be careful. Now, don't click on every other email that you get saying that okay, this is from ICICI, SBI, whatever. Now let's move on to something more interesting, and here onwards it will be pretty futuristic, I would say. This graph shows why people actually don't have bank accounts. Now our country has made some progress in terms of opening up the Jan Dhan accounts and so on and so forth, but right from the topmost bar is about religious reasons. So there is something known as Islamic banking, if you haven't heard it already, right, which follows the Sharia laws and so on and so forth, especially in the Middle East. Down to the most important factor, people don't have enough money. If the cost of doing banking is going to be more than the amount of money or the transaction that I'm going to carry out, I'm not going to open a bank account. I might as well transact in cash. So what do we need? We need innovation. Earlier in the session, Professor talked about innovation, right? So we were going to look at some interesting innovations that are happening across the industry. Closer to home, this is the jam trinity, not the bread butter wala jam. Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile. I think these are the trio which has significantly transformed the banking sector, or is still transforming the banking sector in the country. And friends, today, if you haven't heard already, Unified Payment Interface. How many of you use the BHIM app? Know of it? Okay, not too many people. So you should open up a BHIM app and transact using that. So this is something called as Unified Payment Interface, which the government has put out, and it is one of the world's best payments infrastructure. The work started a couple of years back on this, and earlier in the year it went live. So it is arguably one of the world's best. But let me give you a global view also. We usually think of Africa as a continent which is very backward. I had the opportunity to do IT, digital IT for Africa, 13 Africa countries for almost 4 years. And Kenya was one of the countries where I got an opportunity to work. So, heard of M-Pesa? Yes. Is it successful in India? No? Okay, it's not successful. But it is hugely successful in Kenya. 60% of Kenyan GDP transacts through M-Pesa. And it's a very interesting story. So let us see how it goes. How do I play the video? Oh, sorry, tell me first. Okay, just to go, you should be able to play the video over there. Yeah. Put the volume.
Every minute, M-Pesa transforms the lives of more than 25,000 people in Kenya. This is by providing different possibilities to progress in life. By the time you finish watching this clip, 3,900 people will experience the ease of purchasing airtime and data from their phones. 1,400 will deposit money into their M-Pesa accounts. 1,500 people will receive money from their family, friends, and others. 5 will receive money from more than 190 countries. 1,400 will access their cash through more than 130,000 agents and ATMs across the country. 1,700 will conveniently pay bills, shopping, fuel, and other services from their phones. More than 15 businesses will make payments to other firms. 240 will transfer money from their bank to M-Pesa and vice versa. 875 will save money on their M-Shwari and KCB M-Pesa accounts, the most popular way to save income today. 375 will access instant, affordable microloans on M-Shwari and KCB M-Pesa. M-Pesa continues to find new ways to empower you. You are part of the M-Pesa story. Ni yangu, ni yetu.
Right. So this is a very popular, of course, transacting mechanism in Kenya. And just to give you a perspective, right, when we were growing up, we were in this college itself, there used to be STD-PCO booths all over the place, right? You can find those kind of booths in Kenya all over the country. Anybody can recognize this particular screenshot? Where it could be likely from? Domino's. Yes, it's the Domino's Pizza app tracker, right? Why have I put this up? Because we all love Sita. We adore the character of Sita in Ramayana. Well, not exactly for that reason. Sita is because it is an acronym for speed, information, transparency and accuracy. This is what the banking sector needs. This is what we as customers require and ask or should ask from our bank. You don't want to be waiting in the queue when you visit a branch. You don't want to be continuously calling the contact center, call center as we call it, for information about your bank account or what happened to my credit card, so on and so forth. And you need transparency once you've applied for a loan, that what happened in the process, and of course with accuracy. So, you know, in the previous organization we were playing around with this, and it became a little difficult to explain to the British what Sita really was, or as a character. So I did a little bit of tweaks, and we came up with something called STAIRS, which just is speed, transparency, accuracy, information, and which results in great customer results. Right? So that's what is the significance of that tracker. Now, I'm sure you must have heard of Tesla Motors, yes. Right? Elon Musk. What is he doing? Is he just building cars? Yeah, of course, he's trying to send people to Mars and God knows where. But as far as cars are concerned, he's just not building cars. He's creating an ecosystem. He's creating an ecosystem of creating the world's most efficient batteries. That is what is more important to him. The Tesla car, if you just cut it, slice it, there's nothing in it other than batteries fundamentally. Everything else is of course lots of electronics and nice gadgetry, but to run that car, batteries is what is important. And so he's creating that, he's inventing new types of batteries. Come to the banking sector, application programming interface, APIs, and so the computer engineers in this room are aware of it and others also. What is happening is, bank is being seen as a service rather than a touch point or an interface to which you and I are interacting. So there is a huge amount of push towards creating APIs which the banks can consume and they can offer, right? In fact, in the European regulations, there is something called as a PSD2 regulation which is going to kick in this year, which is forcing all banks to open up their customer information as APIs so that others can build a nice fancy wrapper on it and provide more services. So, we had entrepreneurs also in this morning session or in the earlier session. This is a short video about how a fresh, brand new bank got created using customers, potential customers, as the people who lent money to create that bank. So can we play that video? Yeah.
So the idea behind Mondo is to create the kind of bank that delivers the kind of experience you'd expect from someone like Uber or Facebook or Google. That kind of app that lives on your home screen and actually works, in contrast to the banks that sort of have used the mobile phone as just like a cheaper way to sell you financial products, basically. So really like a home screen app that helps you live your life. We've got about 120, 130,000 people who signed up for Mondo cards. We've distributed about 10 or 15,000 of those so far. And the usage is brilliant. People have used the Mondo card in I think like 80 countries now. It's been really brilliant, really fantastic. So I think there's been less innovation in banking. It's taken longer for those fintechs to start challenging it because of regulation, because the barriers to entry are so much larger. With something like Uber, you can more or less get started by kind of trying to get around the regulation, sort of not quite being licensed in every city. If you try that in banking, you'll go to jail, pretty quickly. So the long-term plan is to build that sort of financial hub for your life. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll do all of those different financial products on our balance sheet. It means we'll use APIs to open up to take retailer loyalty and cashback. If you shop at a grocery store, Mondo should help you automatically accumulate those loyalty points. So yeah, as part of our investment round, we opened up the crowdfunding. So not the whole thing. We've raised £8 million so far, and £1 million of that was for crowdfunding. So we reserved part of our round for our customers. Frankly, it wasn't the general public; it was people who were using Mondo because they kept asking us. We've helped you build the product and define features and read out the bugs. Now, can we invest in the bank? Really make it? Can we be part of that journey with you? And so it's a natural extension of that. Process being really, really close to our customers. It's been great. The response was amazing. We broke the world record in crowdfunding. We raised £1 million in 96 seconds, which was just fantastic.
Right. So you understood hopefully what they did. So this career opportunity and something that will be reshaped in the years to come. Thank you.